Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Sunday morning to you all. I hope you guys are waking up and feeling good out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day. And I do hope everyone's having a good weekend out there so far. There is much to talk about in this morning's video, and the first thing we'll discuss is the tropics. We'll first speak on an area that could get going off the coast of the southeast, and I would say if it's going to get going, it's probably going to be over the Gulf. Once again, we kind of have a reset pattern where energy can get trapped over the open waters of these areas and then potentially gain tropical characteristics. So what we call homegrown activity. So we'll speak on that, and then we'll continue to sort of speak on or monitor an area of interest out here in the tropical Atlantic. Chances have actually dropped of it developing, but we'll continue to check it out, watch it, go over model guidance and all of that. Then we'll speak on today's weather. Once again, we run a risk of strong severe thunderstorm activity for a pretty large area of the country. Some of the same areas, flash flooding also, intense heat. So we'll have a segment for that. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, not only will I pray over your prayer requests, but it gives an opportunity for many others to do so too in the comments below. So let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So this is the entire Atlantic. We got the Gulf, we got the Caribbean, and we got what we call the MDR, Main Development Region. So let's speak on this first. We continue to have convection out here. Now, like I've said in the last few videos, this is an area of the Atlantic that typically doesn't get very active until we get into August, early September. This is when peak season happens out here, if you will. But we are getting blow-ups of just disorganized shower and storm activity indicated by some of these colors out here. You know, the orange, the reds, the yellows. This indicates colder cloud tops, which means we have taller updrafts. The taller they get, the colder it gets. So this is indicated by these colors here. So just some tropical activity out here, but nothing is together. I mean, we don't have a depression or a named storm, which, by the way, the next name is Dexter. Just on kind of unorganized tropical wave activity. And this is unorganized because we got a little bit of shear, especially as these start to get in this area. The shear really increases into the Eastern Caribbean. But we have a lot of dry Saharan desert air right on top of these storms just to the north, and this is typical this time of the year out here, especially in late July. Now, another area we are watching is off the coast of the southeast and over the Gulf, but there's nothing to speak on right now. It's something that could develop certainly over the next several days, really this week. So that's what's going on right now. As far as the chances of any tropical development, this has actually dropped to a 10% risk. And looked like model guidance really kind of dropped off, plummeted over the last 24 hours on this developing. But there's still just very small signs that this wave could survive. But there is no model guidance right now showing this developing into a full-fledged tropical cyclone. So that's the good news. It's went from a 20 to a 10% chance of developing sometime between now, really in the next 7 days. So we'll continue to watch it. It's still dubbed out here by the National Hurricane Center, but as of right now, the chances are trending downward for this developing. So we'll go over model guidance as far as closer to home, and then we'll speak a little bit more on that area of interest from the National Hurricane Center. Now, we'll go over the GFS first, and this is starting off from Monday, so tomorrow afternoon. We got some moisture off the coast of the southeast already, but watch as we move over the next few days. Low pressure actually shows up on your screen here over Georgia and South Carolina, bringing a lot of unsettled weather to kickstart our work week in the southeast. And as we continue to move into like Wednesday, we start to get into Thursday. You start to see a lot of moisture down here in the Gulf. Now, there's nothing too crazy, nothing consolidating really, but it looks like it does try to maybe get its act together a little bit more as it gets a little bit closer to Texas. But I would say this run does not show anything super impressive at all as far as tropical activity. But if I kind of put this in a more of a steadier motion back forward here, so Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you can see how the energy does this number right here. I'm going to draw on this a little bit. It sort of kind of goes into this area, then it kind of wraps down into here. And I really think if anything's going to develop off this, it's going to happen in this circled area right here. Kind of in that same area we were, monitoring Invest 93L last week. We thought this had a decent chance to become Tropical Storm Dexter. And I would say it honestly never even came close to doing so. The closest it came was probably off the coast of Florida earlier last week. So Anyways, we are watching that area now. We'll continue to go over more model guidance. Now the Euro AI model is actually a little bit more impressive. So same thing, you know, we see that L pop up occasionally on your screen, and a lot of that moisture gets thrown down into the Gulf, wraps around ridging once again, and you can see that low pressure pop up on your screen. So I would certainly watch this if you're in Louisiana, even Texas, as we get later into this week, we can say now, since it is Sunday. It does deepen into a 10-11 millibar low, still a relatively weak low pressure, and then bring some heavy rains into the Texas coastline. So that's not a forecast, but that's just some model guidance teasing at the idea of this. But this is all the way into, you know, this coming Saturday. So it's about 6 days away from us. So that's something to watch. Those moisture all the way into Texas. And what's wild is this kind of starts from right here and then does this number right there. So the Icon model, which, you know, I would say my respect points have dropped a little bit on for what it did with last week's system, but it does show the same idea. It's a little bit more aggressive also. You can see the tropical moisture down here as we get into Thursday, then next Friday morning, and the run stops here, and we have just a very, very slowly developing tropical system here in the northern Gulf. But you know, you can probably see the energy best on the Euro AI model. You're just going to see kind of a blob of turquoise, whatever color you want to call this, bluish green color, and then it deepens to almost a yellowish color, which means the energy in the low levels is getting a little bit stronger, and it actually starts to reflect some of these orange and reds, even stronger energy, and that gets tossed into Texas and areas of Louisiana, a little low level spin. So it does try to, you know, develop on the AI model. So we just got to watch this. Sometimes model guidance nails this, and then sometimes it really underdoes these kind of systems. So what I mean is sometimes they can develop a little bit more than what model guidance is showing. So I would say one of the better ways you can look at this with is looking at actual tropical moisture in the atmosphere. So your precipitation values, you know, in the red areas, that means they're over 2 inches, which, I mean, that's deep tropical moisture as it is. But once you see these purple areas, I mean, that's over 2.5, 3-inch precipitation water values. The atmosphere is basically just loaded with moisture, and tropical moisture in this case. And as you continue to get into Wednesday, you can see how that blob of deep moisture just cruises east to west across the northern and central Gulf and just saturates the Gulf coastline and to the Texas coastline pretty much all this week into this coming weekend. So it's just something we watch, nothing concerning on model guidance whatsoever, but I think we need to continue just to kind of just watch it over the next several days. And I mean, you can see the orientation of the rain being indicated here by the Euro ensemble. Rain kind of starts up here, gets over here, flies that way, and then gets all the way into Texas. And this is rainfall over the next 10 days forecast by the Euro ensemble. And you can see how it just rotates around this area because high pressure sort of just kind of meandering, if you will, around this region. So moisture is pinwheeling around that high pressure. So down here in the Gulf, northern Florida, even the Georgia-Carolina coastline, you know, several inches of rain is possible. I could see more than this falling. This is just a blended ensemble run, so it's always going to, you know, blend many members together. So it's going to probably take more of the conservative approach. So I could see more than 1 to 2 inches of rain falling along the Gulf coastline, even a little bit inland over the next week or so. So checking out here in the Atlantic, there's not a whole lot to really show you guys, to be honest. And we start this off tomorrow morning. Here's our wave, and it starts to gain some latitude. And the further north these get, and there's a little bit of a weakness up here, there's not much of a dominant, you know, North Atlantic high up here to keep and bog all this tropical moisture down south and make it continue to cruise sort of east to west. So when these things gain a little bit of latitude, I mean, this is the leftovers of the wave right here. They immediately start to hit some dry air. But that one really doesn't survive. Then we got some other waves trying to get going, but nothing really survives off that either. So that's good. And then it just doesn't look like it's very active after that. So we get about 10 days out. We'll go past 10 days out, and nothing really coming off Africa that looks super concerning to me whatsoever as we get closer to August 1st. Now let's take a look at the Euro. Anything with this? The Euro just barely keeps somewhat of this tropical wave intact as it gets into the Lesser Antilles. And I do think this will bring some unsettled weather to you guys, but no full-fledged tropical cyclone. But I would say the Euro does, begin to get another tropical wave going in the central Atlantic later this work week. But then it sort of weakens, never develops, and we continue to move forward here. We get about 10 days out, and there looks like a more robust wave coming off Africa way out here in the eastern Atlantic. But in general, that gains some latitude also, and basically we can talk about this until the cows come home, but nothing showing out here on just regular model guidance, operational runs. Now, I will say on the GFS, it does keep the plume of moisture alive from that tropical wave, our invest. So there's our big, area of moisture we just talked about closer to home a few minutes ago. Now, if you look on this area of your screen here, this is a big plume of tropical moisture also getting into the Caribbean, really moistening up the area out here. And then this cruises over the greater Antilles, and then this moisture actually makes it all the way to the Bahamas and tries to get all the way to about Florida. So it definitely does throw some moisture at least into the Caribbean islands, I would say. So we'll watch it. Now the spaghetti models here, the ensemble guidance, there's not a whole lot to show you. There's not many members out there. There's nothing that really screams, okay, that is a strong signal, even a moderate signal, barely even a weak one. The Eastern Pacific continues to be kind of the active area. You guys have already taken several names out the hurricane list of names here in the Eastern Pacific. But the Atlantic, we've taken a few. We're down to the D. But, at the end of the day, I'm not seeing a strong signal out there. So we'll continue to watch it. Things can flip very fast out here, though, so we'll continue to monitor it. But a little bit closer to home, let's talk about today's weather. We got a big plume of moisture going through Iowa, getting into Illinois. This is bringing flash flood warnings right now. We got flow across the Northeast, so we got heavy downpours. It's raining pretty good. Starting to move into the Tug Hill Plateau, the Adirondacks, Maine. We just had a flash flood warning. We still do technically here in areas of New Jersey. A lot of rain off Long Island. We got some clusters of storms and showers and downpours across North Dakota. Some moisture down here in Arizona. But all in all, that's about it. So moving forward here, watches, warnings, and advisories. We got heat advisories across many areas of the southeast and up the Mississippi Valley area. Listen, it is very hot. Just miserably hot. Some of your hottest air, if not your hottest air of this summer. Like I said, the orange heat advisories, the pink right here, that is extreme heat warnings, extreme heat watches in the burgundy, and this is bordering flood watches. So it's hot and humid when you got heat alerts bordering flood watches. So flood watches extend from Iowa through Illinois, all the way through Indiana, southern Ohio, West Virginia, into Kentucky. And red flag warnings out in Idaho and Wyoming. Now, the risk of severe weather, we got 3 areas to watch. We'll start west to east. This is the slight risk here. So this includes Bismarck, Jamestown, down into areas of just about gets into Nebraska. It looks like it just gets into central areas of South Dakota. If you notice low energy with me this morning, guys, I am pretty tired. One of those mornings where I slept in for sure, but there's a 2% risk of a tornado in this region, so be mindful. Wind threat, 15% risk of damaging winds. Hail threat, 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. We'll scoot on down here. Just remember the entire marginal risk is a level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather. So, that includes a good chunk of Nebraska down to Kansas, going across, areas of Iowa and all the way down to Kansas City. Here's our other slight risk area, guys. This includes Springfield, over to Indianapolis, down to Louisville, Lexington, Kentucky, Cincinnati, all the way into West Virginia, Huntington, and just even a closer look here. Just want to make sure I get everybody in the picture here. I know this is always questionable whether it shows up well on the videos for you guys, but hopefully it does. But listen, there is a 2% risk of a tornado across these areas for today. Cincinnati, Indianapolis, some highly populated areas. 2% risk of a tornado with some of these storms. Wind threat, 15% risk of damaging winds. Hail threat, a little bit less, 5% risk of hail. So go back to that. And then the last area we'll look for is, this goes across the Mid-Atlantic. Risk of these storms being severe, level 1 out of 5 across the dark green area. And then my folks here in New England, highly populated area for some of these regions, Albany, New York City, all of southern New England. So Hartford, Boston, Providence, out in Provincetown, Cape Cod, risk of severe weather here. And even in this area, folks, 2% risk of a tornado across these regions. And then the wind threat, 15% risk of damaging winds. Hail threat, 5% risk. So we'll zoom into some of those areas. Risk of flash flooding, entire yellow region, 15% risk of flash flood guidance being exceeded. But you got to watch out for this little area here. Quincy, Springfield, Decatur, is that how you pronounce it? Probably not, but you guys correct me. 40% risk of flash flooding within 25 miles in a given location in this area. So flooding threat is certainly more elevated in this red region. So let's go on and break it down section by section. The southeast, not a whole lot to speak on today. Hot, humid. We're going to get a little bit of storm activity here in the upstate of South Carolina, western North Carolina. Got a little sneeze coming. Come on. My nose has been bothering me this morning. Tennessee, Kentucky, some storms are certainly possible here. More widespread the further north you get in those areas, though, especially northern Kentucky. Big area storms could rumble through West Virginia today and make it all the way into Virginia. But, the deep south, just hot and humid. You're not going to get a lot of flow to kick these storms up. But I will zoom into my friends here in Kentucky and Tennessee. And big storms, as you can tell, they're near Cincinnati. This is 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10. Looks like a lot of the storm action really is for the northern areas of Kentucky. So, once you get into the southern areas, down near Bowling Green, Somerset, down to Tennessee, the storms don't look very widespread, but there is a risk that if any storms could get going in this region, they could definitely be strong to severe for sure. It just looks like it's more confined to the northern areas of Kentucky. Now, watch out in West Virginia. You guys could get some big storms today, but the Northeast, you'll continue just to get widespread rains across the northern areas of New England. Storms possible in western New York. Big storms possible, even a tornado threat. I wouldn't be surprised. They bumped this up from a 2 to a 5% risk in Maine. But, these look like little supercells up here in Maine today. We got some storms popping up in the Mid-Atlantic down here. And then we continue to get into this afternoon. Big area storms begins to hit West Virginia down here, especially the southern areas of the state. And then a wave of storms could cruise across southern New England later this evening. And then things will begin to calm down the overnight hours. It could continue to storm, though, here in Ohio into West Virginia overnight. And just a closer look at a couple areas, Ohio being first, 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m. Stop it here. Look at those big storms near Cincinnati, Dayton, Troy, near Columbus. These storms look to really impact southern areas of Ohio this evening. This is 6 p.m., 7. Storms moving to West Virginia. More storms could hit Cincinnati later this evening. This is 9 p.m. This particular run, the HRRR model shows 2 different storms hitting you guys. Not sure if that's going to be the way it happens. Normally, that's not the way it happens. Typically, if you get storms mid-afternoon in one area, it stabilizes the atmosphere. So you get another storm later in the evening, unless just the environment is just extremely unstable. It's hard for you to get the same intensity type storm again, but it happens for sure. But then just lingering downpours overnight. You can see just more rain still. This is 4 o'clock in the morning. So a little bit closer to the I-95 corridor. This is 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m. It also looks like they're about dinner time. You're not seeing a whole lot out here. And then really it takes into the evening, and it shows kind of a thin, broken line of storms sweeping across southern New England. But I'll be honest, this run might be underdoing it. Unless these storms are more intense than what this is being modeled. But this is 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11. So I'd honestly watch, later this evening in southern New England for just the line of storms that could certainly produce an isolated tornado and some damaging winds sweeping across all these areas. But there's not a whole lot to show you there. Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, here we go. 1, 2, 3 p.m. Big storms near Portland, Augusta, Bangor. You guys could get some big storms in the down east areas of Maine. And look at these storms. You see the circles coming off some of them, indicating more intense, potentially rotating up draft. So, potentially your tornado threat's a little bit higher. But these are some big storms along the Maine coastline. Big storms showing up also in New Hampshire. and we continue to move this forward. And just a stormy summer afternoon, evening for the state of Maine for sure. So more storms could make it in overnight, but they look to weaken. So be aware of that for sure, guys. South central U.S., and there ain't really anything to speak on. So some pop-up thunderstorm activity here and there. Flow will continue across New Mexico. Nothing to speak on for you guys. Just hot, humid, and summer continues to rage on. The north central U.S., we get into this afternoon. We got 2 areas to watch for. One up here in North and South Dakota, clusters of storms, tornado threat there. And then one in Indiana and Illinois getting into Ohio, which we've already spoke on. But we'll clear the entirety of the run here. I just want you guys to see a larger, broader picture, if you will. And then we get a little bit closer to our friends in the Dakotas. This is about midday. See the storms dancing around in North Dakota. And then we start to get into this evening. We get into the overnight hours, and it just looks like a very stormy time here in central, then getting into southern and southeastern North Dakota. Doesn't show a whole lot of storms getting going here in South Dakota until later this evening. But once they do here in the northern counties of South Dakota, they could produce some tornadoes and some very large hail. You can see those circles coming off some of them cells. I mean, this is late evening, getting close to midnight. Storms cruising across eastern areas of South Dakota and southeast North Dakota. And then these storms eventually get all the way into Minnesota. So just be careful, I would say, in this corridor right here, in these regions, for a higher tornado threat for sure from our friends here in the Dakotas that's tuning in. Now closer to Illinois, Indiana, storms could, be raging already about mid-morning. You got storms moving across the northern half of Illinois, getting into the northern areas of Indiana. Could get hit by some storms. About early to mid-afternoon, Indianapolis, Champaign, Springfield, same thing. And there is a tornado threat here too. You see some of the circles coming off those storms. This is 4 p.m. Big storms hanging out in central Illinois and Indiana. And all threats with these storms. It's not a severe weather outbreak by any means. But these storms will have some flow to work with around the upper portion of this high pressure. And eventually these storms will be intense and sink a little bit further southward, but it just looks like a very stormy afternoon and evening for Indianapolis and around this area. And eventually these storms will try to get all the way down to like Bloomington, Carbondale, Evansville, but it just looks like the more intense corridor of these storms just really look to be in the central parts of Illinois and Indiana, and even more scattered heavy rains could develop later tonight. This is 4 o'clock in the morning. We got a lot of heavy rain continuing across some of these areas. So rainfall, and I've missed showing you rainfall for a couple areas already, but I'm glad I'm remembering here. See this corridor of very heavy rain going through from Iowa, through Illinois, Indiana, all the way into Kentucky. So a good 1 to 2 inches of rain for some of these areas. Some regions is probably going to get 2 to 3 inches of rain, and it's really a tight corridor through these states. So western U.S., pretty quiet. Not a whole lot to speak on. Seems like I say that every time for the western U.S. A little bit of downpour activity across the Four Corners region. A little bit of activity up here in Montana. And we're probably going to get some scattered showers across Washington and northern Oregon. But all in all, maybe a bigger system begins to work its way across the Rockies overnight. So some more rain across the Pacific Northwest, northern Idaho, getting into western areas of, say, Montana into tomorrow morning. Temperatures, it's crazy. You're going to get some big storms in areas of the Northeast today, but it's not going to be super hot. But the entire southern tier of the country, once you get south of this flow, is going to be baking alive out here. 90s, low 100s. Old Mitch has to mow his grass today in these brutal temperatures here in central South Carolina. So y'all say a prayer for him. I'm trying to knock it out after this video. But just normal summer type stuff across the western U.S. Folks, that's all I got. Y'all have a wonderful day, and appreciate the support. I get caught up with all the comments tomorrow afternoon. I know I get behind on the weekends, but yeah, you guys have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and we'll talk soon. God bless.